Can you guys hear this? I know what you guys know what that sound is, right? You guys know what that sound is, right? It's the iPhone alarm sound. So if you have the Android, you got a little nicer one. It's okay. It's okay. But there's been so many times that's woken me up out of my sleep, and I'm just like, ugh! 5 more minutes. Five more minutes, and then that becomes several, and then it becomes an hour, and then it becomes, oh my gosh, I'm late. And now, the worst of this happened when, I was getting up for our 6 a.m. basketball practices before school. And these were some of the best times of my life. I'm joking, actually. You get up at 5 or 4:30 a.m. And this is Chicago during the wintertime. So you see it. So it's snowing outside right now, but just imagine it 10, 20 degrees colder, and it's dark. It's dark. It's unnatural to be up at that time. It's just unnatural. So I get to school because I've got to travel to school, and before 6 a.m., if I don't get there at 6 a.m. or I think sometimes it was 5:30. If I didn't get there right before, then I got locked out, which meant I went to school for nothing. But then if you did get in and if you were late, then you had to run, and you had to make up for being late. And if you didn't make the amount of time that you were supposed to run your sprints in, you had to do it again. And then go through school and then do another practice after school. Now, why would anybody do that? Now, look at me. I am not Corey Blackwell. I am not 6'7". I'm a little vertically challenged. So I wasn't going to the NBA. Why was I getting up at 5 a.m. to just go and play some basketball, and I wasn't going to go anywhere with it? Why did I work hard to stay on a team that didn't want me? When I was a freshman, I went to our tryouts, and I did not make the team. It was the first cut, we're after the practice, like we're all waiting for your name to be called. And I'm waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and it doesn't happen. And of course, you got your friends, they're all like, well, I made the team, or, well, you ain't make the team, man, you a bum anyways. They don't need you. You wasn't going to play. This is what happened. And I remember, I'm like, nah, I'm going back. I did not make the team, but I showed up to practice. I didn't make the team. I showed up to practice, and I showed up to practice, and I showed up to practice until it was like the middle of the season. I still was not on the team. And finally, we do a little tournament, and I get to play a couple of minutes. What was it all worth it? To me back then, absolutely. Because I love the game of basketball. Because I love it enough that I would get up in the morning, I would deny myself, and I would get to school early. Who wants to get to school 3 hours early? Already having played and you're sweaty and now you're in class. Nobody. But here we are. And I think today I want to speak to us about just being prepared. I want to speak to us about putting forth that effort. The quality of your preparation is directly affected by how you view your situation, how you view the seriousness of your situation. And we're going to be in 2 Peter chapter 3. That is going to be our main scripture today. The title for today is Prepped and Ready. Now, as you can see, I am not as talented as Uni or as Romaine. I was not a professional basketball player in any way, but I absolutely love the sport. And I would give my all. Some people don't know how physical a sport of basketball is, and when you're not as good like I was, then, getting wood burn and diving for a basketball, getting hurt, it happens. but you give your all for the thing that you love. 2 Peter chapter 3, and we're going to be in verse 14. Verse 14, it reads, "So then, dear friends, since you are looking forward to this, make every effort to be found spotless, blameless, and at peace with him." The phrase here, dear friends, in the Greek is agapetos. It comes from the word agape. It directly is translated to beloved, to favorite one, or worthy of love. I pray all of you today. I know we got a little bit of an admonishment earlier, right? But I pray that today you do feel loved. That God sees you as worthy of love. And that in these scriptures, as a father, what he wants to do is prepare you. What he wants to do is make you ready for life. And I hope that today, that through the scriptures that you have heard, I pray that through the fellowship that you have received, that God is preparing you and shows you that he loves you. That he loves you. And so, as I preach today, I pray that you're loved as well. But I have this against us. Some of us are not prepared. Some of us have not allowed God to prepare us to go after what it is that we have in our life. So, have you prepared yourself? Point number one, in order to be prepared, you need to recognize the gravity of your spiritual journey. Recognize the gravity of your spiritual journey. What is it that you are going after? How important is it to you? Let's go over to James chapter 4. When we recognize that our spiritual journey is truly important, we see that just like somebody who would go to basketball practice every single morning, even though they're not going to make it, to get that spot on the team, it requires diligence. It requires a commitment. It requires you to make every single effort. Because here's the thing. You're not fighting for a spot on a basketball team. You're trying to get into heaven. This is not something that you just stumble into. James chapter 4. James chapter 4. And we're going to start in verse 8. And it says, "Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded." Now, this double-mindedness is not like you're two-faced. It means you are doubting yourself, that you are unsure, that you are shaken up a little bit. The context of James 4 here is that the Bible is calling us, whether we know God or not, that we draw close to him. If you are unsure, that you become sure by drawing close to him. If you have walked away from God, then you come back. Wash your hands and be cleansed. Some of us have not moved on. Some of us are holding on to the past a little bit. And maybe that's why you're not prepared. Maybe you're worried and you've been reminiscing on the things that happened in 2023, and so you haven't got started on anything in 2024. I know it's the first Sunday, but it's not the first day of the year, so I've got to ask you, how's it been going? Have you started on what you set out to do? And now, if there are things that are holding you back, if you have not forgiven people, if you have not forgiven yourself, then of course, you're going to be sitting thinking, man, there's no way I can do this. There's no way I can really change this. And so we put some far out goal at the end of the year and saying, I'm going to get there at the end of the year with no actual plan to get there every single day. And we've not moved forward. I want you guys to think about a student, right, preparing for an exam. They understand that, you know that the exam is coming. You could either procrastinate or you could prep yourself every single day so that you are truly prepared. See, the student, what they do is you grab your. I know Andrew knows about this. I bet he's got. There's a textbook right now that he hates looking at, but he sees it every day, and he's in there. But the reason why he's going to be prepared for it is because he has decided to cling to it. Have you decided to cling to your word? Aaron talked about this last week. Have you been reading your Bible every day? Are you clinging to the word of God? Are you drawing close to the word of God? When you cling to it, then you're going to be ready for God's exam. Are you really ready for those goals that you have set out before you? If you have not been clinging to God, then there is no way that you are truly ready. I want us to dig a little deeper here. I want you guys. I'm going to share a little story with you. It was the break, or it was Christmas time, between Christmas and New Year's, and I'm with my fiance's family up in Poughkeepsie, and we're hanging out. It's like after. Of course, they like eat the whole week. So we're like sitting on the couch and we're watching. Her brother puts on this World War II show. It's called Band of Brothers, and Diala's like, "What are we watching? Why can we put on something else, please?" So here you go. This is what it was for. Now in this show. This Band of Brothers show, it's about the 101st Airborne Unit, which they were deployed behind enemy lines in World War II, right before D-Day. So it's towards the near the end of the war, but these men are put behind enemy lines, and they're there to help the search and rescue. They're a tactical unit. Now, the Band of Brothers, the 101st Airborne, is known for having some of the worst casualty rates. It is known for a turnover of people going in and out of that unit. Young men dying and giving their lives. And there's a particular episode where they are going on they have to go further behind enemy lines, and it's wintertime, and they have no jackets. They are ill prepared to handle the weather and handle the terrain that they're about to be fighting in. So imagine it's whiter than it is right now. It's snowy. They're in the woods. You cannot see anybody, and you're freezing cold. You don't have a change of clothes. You barely have any food. You're woken up at night by gunshots and bombs. And these men were constantly seeing their friends die and pass away. They had a shortage of what back in those days, during World War II and some of those wars earlier in the 20th and 19th century, they used morphine to kill pain. So the medic that was assigned to that crew or that battalion would have a bunch of morphine. And every person in their kit, they had their personal kit, would have it's called a stippet of morphine. And then whenever you got hurt, you shot yourself with the morphine and it would kill the pain. And this corporal, he's a medic, his name is Corporal Rowe, and he's running around everywhere, just trying to get some morphine to help with the pain of the men around him. Trying to save at least just one. Trying to just do something about the pain for his brothers. And I think we really got to look at how difficult and how almost sometimes impossible life will feel when we do not prepare ourselves. These men were not prepared to go into enemy lines, and they paid for it. And the only reason why it ever stopped was because they got rescued. Because they finally mustered up a force to go and rescue them. Some of us are acting as if we don't have to fight a war. As if we're just going to go out here and we're going to be fine in the cold. And in this world that spiritually wants to take us down. So I ask yourself, are you preparing yourself like a soldier? We're not just making goals for this year. We are actively going to war against your procrastination, against your laziness, against your purity, your impurity, right? We're going against physical circumstances, against the doubt that you have. This is not just a simple, I'm going to do great things and be successful in 2024. No, I need to get myself prepared and ready to take on what God is setting before me. So have you prepared yourself? Do you feel ready to complete any of the goals that you have? And maybe because you are not prepared, you have not started. And maybe that's why we're walking in today late. I'm going to be real. I was telling you guys earlier, if I had came to practice late, I would have got locked out. Could you imagine being locked out of church? Could you imagine if we just turned off the elevator, you couldn't get up here? And you had to stay out in the snow? And you wondering, did we have church today? Yeah, we did. Where was you? You just weren't prepared. You just were not prepared. You weren't prepared. My challenge for you is that you reflect truly on where you are at. Have you prepared yourself spiritually? Are you as serious as a soldier on the battlefield? Is this life and death for you? Is this the difference between having a dream come true or not? Are you getting yourself prepared for the future? But now, of course, in order to prepare ourselves and our dreams, we've got to make sure that we have a plan and we're making every single effort to work that plan. Point number 2, making every effort in our plan. Let's go over to Philippians chapter 2. Philippians chapter 2, and we're going to be in verse 12. And it reads, "Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling." Now, a lot of times you hear the, we don't have to work for any of our salvation. And we don't have to, and true, you cannot come before God and say, well, I did this, that, the other. Those are the guys that Jesus says, I don't know you. Get away from me. So you can't do that. But that doesn't mean that as someone who lives on this earth, that you don't have to work at making sure that you are saved. And for example, if we look at this requires some dedication. And, okay, cool. I talked about sports earlier. I'm going to talk about it again, so bear with me, right? But think about, say, an Olympic athlete. They live their lives in 4-year intervals. They don't have a resolution that they're completing at the end of the year. They've got to wait for competition day 4 years later. So what do they do every day? How do you see the goal that far out? How do you keep yourself accountable and make sure that you are ready by the time competition day arrives? How does the sprinter, how does the weightlifter, how does the swimmer make sure that they are ready? How do they keep their eyes on the prize? What do they say? I just got to beat my last best effort. They look at what they have done and they say, I can do better. Have you looked at what you have done in 2023 and said, I can do better? Have you looked at yesterday and said, I can do better today? They're doing this for the next 4 years, and the only way that they know that they are ready is when they get to that race and they do well. But the man, the woman that does not prepare themselves will not be ready and will see that everything that they did was a waste. But we're not talking about something that is here. Can you guys name any of the thousands of Olympians out there besides Michael Phelps? Okay. Can you guys name any of them from the last, let's say, 40 years? I'm talking about like 40 years ago. Who? I don't know who that is. For yourself, or are they for you to glorify God? Do they require you to get closer to God, or is this something you could do tomorrow and you're done? Either way, we need to work every single day as an Olympian athlete does and making every day count, preparing ourselves, making every single effort. Another, if I can, illustration I can give you guys, you get this picture, okay? We're going to stay here for a little bit, all right? I want you to think about a carpenter, right? Jesus was a carpenter, and this is I think is one of my favorite analogies. But every single detail that goes into the building of a house is important. When you or I, who may not be carpenters, see a slab of concrete, that's all we see. We don't see that as the foundation for a house. When we see wood and nails and material and insulation and all these different things, it's a pile of stuff. But when put together by somebody who has skilled hands and has a plan for it, it creates what? A house, which will house who? A family, a home. It creates something for people to enjoy, to have a life in. But what does he start with? He starts with a blueprint. He doesn't just go in there and, I could make a house. You better hope there's no wind or rain or anything else. You better live in a vacuum or something because it's gone. I don't know how to do that physically. But now, this working of your salvation, working out your salvation in fear and trembling. The context of this in which Paul is writing this is saying, let what you do be seen by others so that they can also enjoy that salvation. The carpenter builds a house. He doesn't live in it. It's for somebody else. The kingdom that you are building, the salvation that you are working out, allows for somebody else to live in God's house. Your work, the things that you do, they're not for your glory, but they should be on display. So if you haven't been working, you're neglecting your salvation. You're neglecting those that could live in God's kingdom. Who are you building a house for? Are you building up God's kingdom so that people could live in it and have eternity with you? Because this is where it's a little bit different. Now, I think we got to look at our actions daily. Are you moving towards? Because that house doesn't get built in a day. First, it's the concrete. Then the wood is up, and you're like, this is still not a house. I don't know what you're making yet. And then you see the frame is together, and it's like, it looks like a house, but nobody can live in there. And then finally, it is one. but it takes daily dedication, just as the Olympian, just as the carpenter, just as the Christian. So evaluate your daily habits. Do they promote you reaching your goal? Do they promote you growing closer to God? And if you don't have the habits, then, I mean, maybe that's why you haven't started. I can feel the same way. You know, I can feel, you feel a little lazy. And you feel like, I don't want to get started yet. I don't want to get started yet. And it's because you have not built the habit of going that it's just so hard to start. So my challenge for you, evaluate your daily habits. Are they bringing you closer to God? Point number 3, my final point here. Let's turn over to Ephesians chapter 5. Ephesians chapter 5, and we're going to be in verse 26. Now, a lot of times this passage is read in the context of husband and wife. And we're going to break this down a little bit so you guys don't, we're going to talk about marriage a little bit. But point number 3, striving to be without spot or blemish. Remember, 2 Peter said that we should make every effort to be found by God without spot or blemish. We are to be found by God pure. Are we living like it? This requires constant self-evaluation and committing yourself to being aligned with your spiritual goals. This is not something that just happens. This is not something that you can wake up and do on Sunday and then on Monday you're back to doing your regularly scheduled program. This is something that requires constant evaluation. Verse 26, we're going to start a little bit in the middle here. It says, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present herself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. The first thing that we can think about, if you guys, if any of you are, I don't know about here in New York, but I mean, some people have gardens. The G has one in the house. So, it's a little jungle in there. So there's plants everywhere, right? But now, if G asks me to water the plants, she wants me to water them so that the plants survive. If there's too much sunlight on the plants, you got to move them around a little bit so that they don't dry out. If there was a pest problem, you'd get some spray or put something in the soil so that the pest would go away. There is a constant care for the plant, for the garden, for your walk, for your purity, for you being blameless before God. And now here in this passage, the context here, right, is Paul likening the church to the bride of Christ. Right? And so, of course, it gives us the greatest example of how husbands are supposed to act with their wives, how people are supposed to act in marriage. But it is also to every single one of us who is also unmarried. You are married to Christ, and so some of us have heard this before. However, in Jewish tradition, I want to give us a little something here. In Jewish tradition, when a man proposed to a woman, if she accepted the proposal, the man would then go with his father and live with his father and start to work on building a house for him and his wife. They would separate themselves for a little while. Right? Now, when the groom is ready, when the house is done, he comes and he goes to his bride-to-be to present her and say, hey, the house is ready. We can be married now. We can go. When the man is ready, when Christ is ready, not you. It's not the woman getting ready for her husband to come. The man is getting ready and she is waiting expectantly. Now, what happens if the man comes back and there's any blemish on her? So Christ is going to come back when you're ready. And what should he expect on you? A blemish? A wrinkle? Oh, I need grace. He's given it to you. He proposed to you. He died for you. He washed you with the word. He baptized you. You have been cleaned. You need to keep yourself clean. You're not living for now. You're not living for yourself. You are promised to a God who has done everything for you, has built you this kingdom, and just wants you to be pure. And just wants you to say, I waited for you. Now, here's the issue. Of course, the man, Christ, has washed you with the word, but you've got to continue to keep yourself clean. You've got to continue to wash yourself. You need to continue to keep yourself in this word and keep yourself clean. Husbands, you've got to continue to wash your wife with the word. Wives, you need to continue to wash yourself with the word. Husbands, you need to be bathed in the word. Everybody take a bath. Clean yourself up. Thank you, Tyler. Because here's the deal. I've got a plan to make myself clean so that Diala can be clean, so that when it does happen, that dress means something. Now, a lot of the brothers, you're like, well, I'm not wearing no white dress. Well, you're wearing white, and it better be white when he comes back. Every single one of us. It's a robe. It's cool. It's a robe. But it better be clean. Now, this is a big reason why a lot of times we can't get going. Because we have blemishes on us. And first we need to deal with the blemishes. First we need to deal with the dirt before we're able to move forward. So wash yourselves with the word. My challenge to you today is that you really just reflect. What do you have on you? Who do you need to confess to? You know, and that's the thing, is that there is no judgment between us in the sense of who is saved and who is not. If you have sinned, I can't tell you that, okay, well, you can't come back from it, because I have done the same. And so confess your sin. Reflect on where you have been at and move forward, waiting for Jesus, waiting for him to return and call you home. We need to address our spiritual purity. I want us all to look at the goals that we have set this year. And if you have not set any goals, then you need to make some. Bring them before God. You need to make a plan to grow closer to God. You need to make a plan to glorify God. And whatever goals that you have, if they are not meant to glorify God, you need to get them out of there and you need to switch them. You need to get some new goals. I want all of us to be diligent, to make every single effort, that every single day we are moving toward that goal. You know, me and Diallo, we have times planned to talk about the wedding. We've got to put these things into action. We just not going to show up on the day. I ain't got no suit, she ain't got no dress, there ain't nobody there. We're just, okay, I guess we're doing this. Be diligent. Make every single effort. You need to strive for purity. in every part, not just the sexual purity, but you need to be pure in your heart. Whatever is there, whatever bitterness, whatever unforgiveness, whatever view of man, whatever fear of man needs to be taken out. Be like the athlete, be like the soldier. Prepare yourself every single day. Just beat that last best effort, and you truly will be prepared for what God has for you. With that being said, I love you, family. To God be the glory.